This is Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Mitch LaFon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon, and I have on the phone the one, the only Frankie Banali. We spoke the day after the news was announced of his pancreatic cancer, and you know what? It is going to be a little too emotional to do this, so I am just going to defer to Frankie. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the one, the only good friend, Frankie Banali. We are speaking with drummer Frankie Banali. The new album is, of course, Hollywood Cowboys, Quiet Riot. Bonjour, monsieur. Comment allez-vous? How are you?
Merci beaucoup. I'm doing great, all things considered.
Yeah, so we are recording this on October 22nd, and yesterday, October 21st, a statement was put out, and how did that feel for you to sort of have that news put out for the public to share and just say, okay, I've been dealing with this since April, but now we're letting the world know? How was that?
Well, it's been a 6-month pressure cooker because I was diagnosed on April 17th, but I made the conscious decision to wait and see how my health situation would play out before I would go public. And I'm grateful to you for allowing me to get the word out, which has reached far and wider than anything I could ever have imagined. And it's been an amazing, the level of love and prayers and support and good wishes across the board. And just worldwide, not just on the internet, but private messages and texts and emails. It's been a very humbling experience. I have always appreciated the Quiet Riot fans, but this has taken me to an even greater level of appreciation for.
There was a brief audio drop, but let's get right back to Frankie Banali.
Given me my career, and that has made it possible for Quiet Riot 3+ decades to continue. So it's been overwhelming in a very positive way, and it's also been something that has given me an even greater reason to continue my fight.
It really has, and I have to say, when the statement went up, I expected all the music sites to grab it and make a story out of it, which happened almost instantaneously. By I put it up at 7:45, and by 7:47 it was on. But when I started seeing Breitbart, Fox News, People Magazine, Billboard, Rolling Stone, I just went, you know what? That just goes to show the incredible impact that you and Quiet Riot have had, because I don't think the Sunset Strip really happens if it wasn't for Quiet Riot on that first album, or the album. And it was heartwarming, because I was like, okay, yes, Blabber's going to get it. Yes, Brave Words is going to get it. Yes, Ultimate Classic Rock. And it's like, okay, that's nice. We're in a little family and it's cool. But when I saw that reach, I was like, wow, that, and so I figured that must have been very powerful for you to see that everybody in mainstream and everybody just went, hey, we're on this guy's side. We love this guy. And right. That must have been overwhelming for you too.
Yeah, it's, and I'm still not over the effects of it, because it is so much, bigger than life. And again, I'm incredibly grateful, for it. It's not something that I take for granted, because I didn't expect it. And it's truly been worldwide. From Japan to Russia and everything in between. I've received all these incredible messages and posts, and again, I've always fought for everything I've ever gotten in my life. Right now, this is literally a fight for my life, and seeing all those posts are going to stay with me for as long as I'm fighting this situation I'm involved with. It really has given me strength to continue to move forward.
Yeah, a little strength to move forward. Sorry, the audio skipped right there, but yeah, give it strength to move forward. But okay, let us talk about the album as well, because you do have a new album out, and new music is important. So let's talk about that real quick. This album, a little bit like Road Rage, has sort of a similar story. You recorded it with one singer, and by the time it comes out, we're on to a new singer. So talk to me about some of the similarities in those situations, but also some of the differences, because with Road Rage, you said, F it, we're going to re-record it with the new guy. And on this one, you went, yeah, no, we're just going to put it out as is. So what are some of the similarities in what happened, and what are the differences? Because the outcomes are different.
I still stand by my decision to re-record the vocals on Road Rage. That was something that I was not interested in doing again. James waited until after I had delivered the masters to the label for release, and until after we had finished filming the video for In the Blood, which is going to premiere this Friday, October 25th. But he waited until both of those things had been accomplished before he quit. But I made a conscious decision that just to continue to move forward. I believe in the record, irregardless of the situation of having to change singers again. I accepted his decision, and within 24 hours, he had been replaced.
Yeah, and we brought back Jizzy. But okay, and I don't know if there's any hurt there or not because he left, but in terms of the vocal performance on the album, how do you sort of stack it up? I mean, James was obviously very competent. He delivered a great vocal performance on this, did he not?
Yeah, no offensive disrespect to James, because he is a great vocalist and he's a great performer. But I'm only, my mindset is what's best for Quiet Riot, and I'm only interested in working with people that want to be in Quiet Riot. And if they don't, they're free to leave at any time. Just give notice, which is what he did, and he quit. And there were a number of singers that I was going to reach out to that had no pre.
And we had one more little drop in the audio. Don't worry, after the first 10 minutes, we hung up the phone with Frankie and we called him back, and that solved all the issues. So you've got another couple of minutes where there might be a drop or not, but don't worry, it all got fixed. And now back to Frankie.
But before doing that, Jesse Pearl did almost 3 great years with Quiet Riot. I've always liked Jizzy. I think he's a phenomenal rock singer. I think he's an incredible on-stage performer, and he's got his own persona, and he has his own vocal sound, and I love the way he sings. So before opening the door to an unknown entity, to Quiet Riot, I wanted to reach out to him to see if he might be interested in coming back into the ranks of Quiet Riot, and I was happy that he was willing to come back on board with the band, and that worked out really well for everyone because he's already been there with Quiet Riot, so he knows what to expect. There are no surprises there. And the other side of that coin is I know what to expect from Jizzy, and I appreciate.
Apologies again. Now back to Frankie.
Sound like Kevin DuBrow, nor do I want him to try to sound like Kevin DuBrow. So he's respectful to the legacy and the music that Quiet Riot created before him, but he also puts his own stamp on it, as does Alex with his guitar work, and as does Chuck for decades. So for me, it was a win-win situation, and it was a very seamless change from what had happened previously.
Okay, so I want to ask you this, because you've had different vocalists come in after Kevin passed away, and they some fit, some didn't. Jizzy fits great, but how come when Queen came back, they couldn't replace Freddie? They went Queen featuring Paul Rodgers, Queen featuring Adam Lambert, in a sort of a way of saying, this is not Queen, this is Queen with this other guy. Why not Queen featuring James Durbin, or Quiet Riot featuring Shawn Nichols? Why have we stuck to just Quiet Riot and not done a featuring with?
Quiet Riot has been Quiet Riot since before I was involved with the band. And Randy Rhoads, hands down, is one of the greatest guitarists of our generation. They never called Quiet Riot featuring Randy Rhoads. And when the band was resurrected for the Mental Health record, as great and talented a singer as Kevin Dubrow was, the band wasn't called Quiet Riot featuring Kevin Dubrow. And when I decided to move forward with Quiet Riot again in 2010, being the only Quiet Riot member wasn't called Quiet Riot featuring Frankie Banali. So there was no way that it was going to be anything other than Quiet Riot. It could never possibly, by any stretch of the imagination, be Quiet Riot featuring James Durbin, because he was born the same year Quiet Riot recorded the fourth album. He had nothing to do with any of the music that came before him. So why feature him? It was never anything that was even remotely a possibility, and I will stand by that to the grave.
Absolutely. Frankie, can I call you right back? There seems to be a woman that keeps cutting in on this conversation, so I just want to call you back and get a better line. Is that okay?
I'll hang up and I'll wait for you to call again.
Okay, let me call right back. So as you can hear, that ends the first part of this phone conversation, and I do apologize to you, the listener, for the little squelches and ups and downs, but what I took out, because I actually edited some of this, there was this woman that kept coming into this conversation, so the lines must have been crossed or something, and it was maddening. Anyway, here is the second part of the interview with Frankie Banali, and guess what? The audio was absolutely stellar. It was exactly what it should be. So, again, apologies. Thank you for putting up with that. I'm running the episode because I just didn't want to throw it all out and just go, well, too bad. Given the circumstance, given that it's Frankie Banali, a friend and stuff, had it been some other artist, I might have said, hey, publicist, or hey, can we re-record this? But this one to me has a sort of a historical significance, and I just didn't want to completely and utterly just dismiss it and throw it out. So thank you. If you're hearing me now, thank you, because that means you've stuck with me. So thank you. I do apologize for that. When you do these interviews over the phone, you just never know. Sometimes it's hit and miss. Is the cell phone connection that the guy's calling on good, or are they on a Bluetooth? Is it a speakerphone? Is Skype working? Is my record? Listen, here we are, and here is Frankie Banali. On 3, 2, 1. Now, of course, having said that, you did, of course, bring back Jizzy Pearl. You did Quiet Riot 10 in 2014. The album was on iTunes and stuff and has disappeared. What's sort of the plan to re-release that or make it available, but also maybe get it on a physical product? Well,
it's not beyond the realm of possibility. I went back quite a few months ago, even before I was aware that there was going to be a change in personnel once again. And I went back and listened to those tracks, and the 6 original songs are really, really strong. So I'm not opposed to re-releasing it, whether it will be a 6 EP song set, or whether it's going to be the 6 songs and maybe I'll add 4 other additional tracks to it that were not part of the original digital release. So there is a possibility of that coming out. I mean, I would definitely welcome it because I stand, behind the material, the performances, the vocal performances, and everything that had to do with that record. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. Right now, I'm just concentrating on the release of Hollywood Cowboys November 8th and the video premiere on October 25th. So it's definitely something for consideration, but I would want it to be physical copies, and to do that, it has to be the right set of circumstances.
Okay, fair enough. So let me ask you about the right set of circumstances, because after Rehab came out in 2006, which was a great record, right on the heels of Guilty Pleasures, another great record, in private conversations and in interviews, you sort of said, there's no point in putting out new music, nobody really buys it, it comes and goes, and then Quiet Riot 10 came off, and then it disappeared, and by 2014 it was like, I'm done. We're not making new music, and then we've had 2 new albums in the last couple of years, Road Rage and Hollywood Cowboys. What has changed in your mind where you said, okay, it's worth making Road Rage, and it's worth making Hollywood Cowboys, and sort of where did you change in your perception of, I'm not going to do this, nobody buys this stuff?
Well, I had a complete different mindset when I started to look back at the recorded history of Quiet Riot and how different Condition Critical was from Metal Health, and how drastically different QR3 was from Condition Critical, and so on, going into 1993's Terrified, 1995's Down to the Bone, and then on to Alive and Well, Guilty Pleasures, and the last record we did with Kevin, Rehab in 2006. And I went back and remembered that one of the driving forces for Kevin and I, and especially after we got back together in 1991 and then released, in 1993 we released the Terrified record, was a period of time when nobody cared about rock music, certainly not Quiet Riot, certainly not heavy metal, but the driving force to go in and record new music had everything to do with what Kevin and I wanted to do, which was to continue to write and progress and not just count on the catalog. Yes, of course, we're going to play the catalog material because that's what people want to hear. And to a large degree, they want to, relive a happier time in their lives in the 80s, which was a great decade for all of us. But we wanted to continue to move forward, even if nobody was going to pay attention to the record or play it on the radio or review it. So it was more of a personal commitment to continue to move forward, and that clicked into my brain, and that's when I decided, you know what, it's irrelevant whether anybody likes it or not. I mean, you want people to like the material that you write and the new records that you do, but you have to make it right for yourself first before you can put it out there and hope that anybody else is going to like it. And it was a reversal, but it was a decision that I'm happy that I made.
And listen, I'm happy you made it too. The last two albums have been great. So, all right, let me ask you this. For a few months there in the summer, Quiet Riot went on and toured without you, including playing Heavy Montreal. You've got this show on October 26th at the Whiskey. Depending on whether or not you feel up to it physically in 2020, whether you tour or not, is there a point where you think to yourself, if I have to retire, that Quiet Riot has to retire also? Or can the band go on without you and have Chuck and have Alex, who's been there for 14 years, I guess it is, something like that?
That is correct.
Does Quiet Riot, do you... Maybe this is not the right word, but do you allow Quiet Riot to go on without you in 2021 or do you say, listen, once I retire, this band's gone, this band's retired?
Well, let's first, look at the more recent situation, which has been the touring cycle for 2019. After I was diagnosed on April 17th, I was able to play one festival in Florida, and then the last live performance that I did was at the M3 Festival, and I think that was May 5th. After that, the stern advice from my oncologist and the surgical team and all my doctors was that, getting on a plane was not an option for me, and especially with the treatments that I was doing, both traditional and both in private clinics. So I had a conscious decision to make. I got in touch with some of the promoters to explain to them the situation, and with very few exceptions, they were all very gracious about it. I had a contractual commitment to have those shows work. I had a commitment to the fans that had bought tickets or wanted to see Quiet Riot, but I also had a commitment to the guys in my band. They have families, they have expenses. This is how they earn a living. So I was very conscious of that. And it wasn't trying to pull, trying to pull a bait and switch or anything on the promoters and the buyers of the shows, because the last thing in the world I ever wanted was to miss any Quiet Riot shows. In my entire history, I had never missed a single Quiet Riot show until I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is no joke, and it was a difficult pill to swallow. But at the same time, I kept my focus on keeping Quiet Riot moving forward, and we did so. I'm happy to be able to play the show this Saturday, and I think I'm going to get green lighted from from all the doctors to be able to do the last two shows that we have scheduled for this year, and then to continue with Quiet Riot in 2020. Quiet Riot without Frankie Banali in the future, only time will tell. I mean, I will tell you right now that I will continue and make every effort to continue playing live and recording with Quiet Riot into the future until they stick me in the ground, because my position is best to do something positive while you're on this side of the ground than do absolutely nothing while you're under it. And if the fans want to continue hearing those classic songs being performed by respectable and competent musicians, even if it's without me, then that's also a possibility. I mean, I see no reason why not to continue it if the fans want it. Because the bottom line is the only reason Quiet Riot has been able to continue doing this 3.5 decades later is because of the fans. If they don't want to see it, they don't come to the shows. The promoters aren't going to buy the shows. So it's really all up to the fans. It's not ultimately it's my decision whether the band moves forward with or without me, but at the end of the day, it's going to be if the fans accept it.
Yeah, and the fans are sort of a double-edged sword, right? Because you do have the fans that come out and enjoy hearing Jizzy and enjoy Chuck and you and all that. And then you've got this other set of fans that go, well, if Kevin's not there, it's not Quiet Riot. If Frankie's not there, it's not Quiet Riot. But they do seem to forget that it is a business. And you're right. If the band is not out there or the brand is not out there, Chuck can't pay for stuff. Yes, they have money from other, but people seem to forget that it's a job, right?
I don't really pay attention to that criticism. I pay attention to the fans that come to the shows, and how much they enjoy the show, even if I wasn't involved in the situation. But I really don't pay any attention to that criticism because, I've heard, no Kevin DuBrow, no Quiet Riot, no Carlos Cavazzo, no Quiet Riot, no Rudy Sarso, no Quiet Riot. And I've also heard, Frankie Banali is not an original member of Quiet Riot, to now, no Frankie Banali, no Quiet Riot. So I just treat everything as it comes along. I don't pay attention to that kind of criticism. I pay attention to whether the fans come out and continue to support the band regardless. I also don't pay attention to the, it's got to be the classic Metal Health lineup, because the classic Metal Health lineup lasted for 2 albums, Condition, Critical, and Metal Health. And then there was a change for QR3, and there was a change again for the 4th album, and there was a change again for Terrified, and there was a change again for Down to the Bone, on and on and on. So I really pay attention to the fans that come to the shows and their feedback, and I don't pay attention to the critics, because most of those people never like Quiet Riot, will never like Quiet Riot, regardless of what happened. I mean, I do remember that in the late 90s and the early 2000s, when the reunited Metal Health lineup came out, after the first 6 months, everybody just didn't care. It didn't matter that it was a Metal Health lineup anymore. So, you can't please everybody, so just please yourself.
You really, yeah, exactly. Okay, so let me go left field here and talk about Metal Health for a second. I just want to take sort of a historic perspective. Is how important was videos to you and MTV to the band? Because nowadays we have YouTube and we have Spotify, and it just sort of seems splintered everywhere, where there's no focus from the fan base. You can't just go. In the old days, you'd go to MTV or Much Music, you would turn it on, you would sit on the couch, and you didn't have, you had to get up to change the channel, so you would just sit and watch all of this, and you had to focus. Now we don't. It's all over the place. How critical was that to you? Sort of right time, right place.
Well, it was very critical. I mean, first of all, you have to understand that Kevin and I thought that the Mental Health was a great record. We just didn't know or didn't think that anybody would agree with us. So the people most surprised to the success of the Mental Health record was Kevin and I. MTV and videos, which was a brand new thing at the time, was very instrumental, because what it did is for a band like Quiet Riot, every label known to man, every major label known to man passed on the band, was not going to get into Circus Magazine or Cream Magazine, certainly not Rolling Stone, but we were on MTV. So what it did is it gave an identity to the band. I think it's one of the reasons why people, cite the classic Mental Health lineup, because that was the lineup that did most of the videos for MTV. And that's embedded in the fans' DNA when it comes to Quiet Riot. But it was incredibly instrumental because it actually put a face on the band. We made a conscious decision not to have a band photo on the front cover, and instead we had, the man in the metal mask. But MTV actually put those four individuals as the face of the band. So, yeah, it was incredibly instrumental. And there weren't that many videos out at the time, so you got really good rotation. And as the Mental Health record continued to sell ridiculous amounts of units, I mean, at one point we were selling 500,000 units in a week. It just brought it to a completely different level.
It really did. And I'll say this, even though the mask is on the cover, I think having the mask in those videos also cemented that look for you, or that logo, or whatever you want to call it, because you look at Hollywood Cowboys now and you look at everything since, except for that one album, it's had the mask. And I think if you didn't have MTV to drive that home, even though it was on the cover, I don't know if you'd have the mask on Hollywood Cowboys, right?
Absolutely. I mean, well, I think it would still have the mask, because that was a personal decision we made, and we wanted to be iconic, and ultimately it was. So I think the mask would still be featured on every record, with the one exception. But there's no question about the fact that MTV gave an identity to the band through the mask, and gave an identity to the band through the four individuals in the band at the time.
And I do know that you have another interview scheduled in a couple of minutes, so I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you've done for me, and everything you've done for music. And I'll go all the way back, Mental Health. I mean, that was the trigger. I mean, I was listening to, God almighty, Rod Stewart and Huey Lewis and whatever, and then that came out, and it was just like, okay, it was a game changer. So thank you for everything over the years, and thank you for continuing to make music, and just merci. I mean, just merci.
Well, you know how I feel about you, Mitch. I mean, not only are you a friend of Quiet Riot, but you're a personal friend of mine, which is why, the two most recent statements I made, yesterday's statement and then a previous one having to do with Quiet Riot, went directly through you, because there's no one else in the business I trust as much as I trust you, in a business where nobody trusts anybody. So I'm incredibly grateful to you, not just for your support of Quiet Riot and not just for your support of me, but for a friendship that we've had for decades. And again, nothing but love to you, and thank you very much for always being, always having my back and being in my corner.
Absolutely. And I will say this for folks that don't know, when my daughter Jada was born in 2003, the first person who sent a note and a gift wasn't mom, wasn't dad, it was Frankie Banali, little pink sweater. And that still touches my heart, and that still means a lot. And anyway, I'm going to hang up before I start crying on air. But thank you. It's been a long ride, and we're only getting started.
Well, thank you so much. Always, big love to you and your family, and I'm keeping your father in my thoughts and prayers as well.
Yes, thank you for that. Merci. Thank you, sir. Go do the next one. Cheers. Thank you.
All right. God bless, my friend. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Bye-bye now.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon. Rock Talk.